Damon here from NLP Gym. The story of your life. Most people don't realize that they have a story. We make meaning of just about everything, and the things that we don't make meaning of are the things that seem meaningless in our life. That's just another story we're telling ourselves about the things that seem meaningless. The story we're telling about those things that they have no meaning. So in a sense, almost everything to us has a meaning. And that's what shapes story. We tell ourselves a lot of little stories. Those little stories come together to create our big story. And like I said, most of this is unconscious for a lot of people. What is so important about this is catching those little stories and changing them so that we can change our big story, which is what is shaping our reality, a large part of what shapes our reality. Well, an example of what I'm talking about is when we're judging other people. Basically what we're doing is we're telling ourselves a story about that person, and that reveals more about ourselves than it does about other people. I'll put that another way. When we judge people, that says more about us than it actually says about them. And that often, if you look closely, if you rewind the tape and you go over that, that should give you clues as to what story you're telling yourself about that in particular. And from there you can go on and discover what that larger story, what that smaller story, the larger story that it's feeding into. NLP is full of processes, both technical and creative, that basically reveals our stories that we're telling ourselves, especially the limiting ones. And when you become conscious of this, then you can change it. And that's where the NLP interventions come in. And then you can modify that story, or you can go larger chunk and modify the bigger story that you're telling yourself, which then on a logical level sense can align the smaller stories. Both ways, going about it both ways is probably the best way to do it. And how do we do this? Writing, I found to be extremely effective in doing this. When I journal, basically what I'm writing and what I'm putting out there reflects back to me the story I'm telling myself. It can be the smaller stories and it can be the bigger story. They're all connected. Milton Erickson, the father of modern hypnosis, he was well known for telling people stories, and the people had no idea that he was actually communicating with their unconscious. He would tell them a story, and by the end of the story, they had gone through a generative change, or in some cases even a transformation. This is extremely powerful, and when you start learning your stories, and there are many practices you can use to do this, and NLP is not the only one. I do it in yoga, I do it in my writing practice. NLP is what I found to be the most powerful, the strongest, or the most effective and efficient. And with NLP comes hypnosis. You know, Milton Erickson was modeled, he was one of the models used to create NLP. So hypnosis is an extremely powerful way to get in touch with the unconscious and discover those stories that you're telling yourself and then changing them. Because not everybody's very technical, not everybody gets into the technical aspects of NLP, but the metaphorical aspects of your life, the meanings you're making, and the story you're telling yourself, when you modify that, it's extremely powerful, and it operates on a different level than the conscious level where you're thinking your way through things. It works more through the creative side of you, which is the fun part. We have Sid Jacobson coming June 10th, 11th, and 12th to Aptos, which is a small town right next to Santa Cruz. And this would be a great opportunity to really drop down into your unconscious and get familiar with these stories you're telling yourself and how to shape them and modify them to tell a bigger, better story about your life, and what is the story you're going to be telling yourself that you lived. And that's the story you want to shape for yourself right now. As always, check out our website, nlp-gym.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, and stay tuned to the blog and upcoming trainings. Take care.